Doctor, introduce again.
Okay. We had a very good luncheon. The attendance at this year's Shangri-La Dialogue continues to be very strong, very high level representation. Really 30 high level representatives, ministers, heads of delegations from many countries, so many delegates. Discussions on issues really very relevant, direct. And I would say that it gives us these ministerial luncheons, give us the opportunity to talk about challenges that confront us all. Some general remarks, and then I'll leave you to ask specific issues. It struck all of us as ministers that how transnational, how global the problems are. Because when we discussed the problems, there were very few, if any, instance where minister says, "Oh, this doesn't affect me in my country." We talked about human smuggling, and we found that it was occurring, as we know, in the Mediterranean. It's occurring in Straits of Malacca. It's occurring in the refugees that come out towards Australia. So it's really global. We talk about the threat of ISIS and jihadi terrorism. And again, we found various ministers could relate their experience and their individual countries' challenges, whether it was Germany, whether it was France, whether it was Spain, whether it was Indonesia, whether it was Malaysia, whether it was even a small country. We were told that even Kosovo has got foreign fighters into Iraq and Syria. We talked about the importance of maintaining freedom of navigation and overflight in critical waterways, whether it was the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, the Straits of Malacca, South China Sea. Everyone understood the security challenges. So this points to the fact that one, problems are, security challenges nowadays are indeed very transnational, global, and can only be solved with many countries working together. Two, the relevance of a dialogue forum like the Shangri-La Dialogue, where we can sit down and share with each other our perspectives and try to find a way forward. So with that, I'll leave you with the questions.
Minister, on the issue of sharing, Japanese Defense Minister proposed the Shangri-La Dialogue initiative. Is that discussed at lunch and not with
Yes, the Japanese Defense Minister talked about the SDI, this Shangri-La Dialogue initiative we should talk about. And in principle, I think everyone would agree. How it's done, what pace, leave it to the various fora. But I think his point that we needed a momentum, if you like, not only to establish rules-based consensus system which everyone wants, but to infuse it with a spirit that calls for cooperation and collaboration as a much welcome one, and one that I would say all countries agree.
Minister, Indonesia's defense minister said in an interview with my colleague that countries with conflicting claims in the South China Sea, including China, should do combined peace patrols in order to reduce tensions in the disputed waters. What do you think? Do you think that should be done?
Well, I'll leave that to the claimant states, but I think his larger point is that you need to come together and find a formulation which is satisfactory to all of them. And I think in principle you ought to support that. The larger point is really what has been encapsulated in the Code of Conduct. That's why we're pushing very hard, very much, and very strongly on the expeditious conclusion of the Code of Conduct, which would, if you like, put out practices and protocols in terms of how you respond. An example of this is queues, for example, unexpected encounters at sea, which, to put in layman's terms, you have to decide whether you want to drive on the left-hand side of the road or the right-hand side. And if people don't know, then you have a risk of a collision. But if everybody is clear that this is a left-hand drive or right-hand drive, whichever you choose, then I think you reduce the risk of mishaps. So I think I'll take that specific suggestion from the Indonesian minister, that spirit, and we are, from Singapore's point of view, open to ideas. The larger point is this, which I think all of us have expressed, that critical waterways, whether it's Straits of Malacca, whether it's South China Sea or other parts of the world, are of international concern because it will affect us all. And even though we're not claimant states and we take no sides in the dispute, we are concerned of what potential the disruption of these critical waterways. 60% of global trade goes through the South China Sea, and if anything happens, it will affect us all.
Minister, how do you think Southeast Asian countries, including Singapore, can leverage on the new Southeast Asian Maritime Security Initiative that the US launched? And what kind of impact do you think it might have on these tensions in the South China Sea? Because Senator McCain said it's about the $425 million being going to arming Southeast Asian countries, or even that help the maritime capabilities to deal with crises in the region.
Well, I want to be careful not to interpret or mischaracterize his words, so I'll leave his words as verbatim. But if the initiative increases, for example, awareness of individual countries to be able to respond peacefully, I think it will be good. If one hopes that it should not be used to raise temperatures, and that it has to be done in the context of a framework which still pushes for peaceful resolution of disputes.
Minister, what mechanism is established for preventing escalation of escalation?
Well, as we've said, and we've deliberated at various fora, whether it's the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus or the Foreign Ministers Meeting, that this process, which we have focused firstly on the implementation guidelines of the Declaration of Conduct, the DOC is not a set of just motherhood statements. There are discrete proposals which the signatories have agreed to, and they lay the foundation of reducing escalations. So my point is, it's not as if there's a total absence of measures that can reduce the escalation. The COC attempts to give the guidance, clearance, practices, established practices that people can agree to. During our ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting, there were other ideas floated. Personal use of force, hotline communications. I think all these are good ideas. So from our point of view, we're open to ideas, and we'll continue to discuss them, but I think there has to be a willingness from claimant and non-claimants from all states to sort of entrench, if you like, these safeguards, so that even as disputes occur, that they occur in a context that that reduces tensions and miscalculations.
Minister, do you think it would be a good idea for America to prove the freedom of navigation by sending its ships and planes within 12 nautical miles of locks owned by China in the South China Sea?
America needs no intermediary to explain its own actions. So that's what the U.S. Defense Secretary has established. They have said that they believe in freedom of navigation and flight, and I would say that all countries believe in, including the claimant states. So there is no disagreement there.
Minister?
With regard to the South China Sea, many things have been said over the course of today and yesterday. How much progress do you think has been made with regard to, coming to an understanding, especially Singapore pushing to have that code of conduct, materialize?
Well, to the public that are used to internet speed, some of our deliberations, as someone said, would seem somewhat glacial. And it may be so. But as someone wisely asked, what's the alternative? At least you're discussing, and at least you are talking, people realize that there could be negative consequences. They can raise tensions or even make miscalculations. So I think there's enormous value still in the dialogue that we can speak. And obviously all of us, especially the non-claimant states, will want some clarity and speed and momentum in these resolutions. But as all of us know, not all things can be expeditiously concluded. For Singapore, for instance, if I can localize it, we had issues in terms of Petrobangka between Malaysia and Indonesia, Sepadan and Bitigan, Bikitan, and for us recently in terms of applications of urban charge on property within the marina area, and we chose the judicial route, and there was expeditious conclusion. Not everyone wanted what they want, but we accepted it. Well, we recognize that when it comes to sovereignty claims, it may be difficult, politically difficult for countries to even agree that there is a sovereignty dispute, and less so even go to arbitration and suffer the political consequences if they lose. So we recognize that reality, and we are finding ways forward, not as quick as others want, but I think at least we're talking.
Minister,
We can take 2 more questions.
can I ask you about the levels of rhetoric you see between from the United States and from China, even here at the Shangri-La Dialogue? Is that a concern for you? And what is Singapore's position?
Mean?
The increasing aggression sort of in that rhetoric. And what is Singapore's position on this, given the importance of maintaining good relations with China and the US?
I don't think all of it was rhetoric. I think some of it was really aspiration. And I wouldn't dismiss, if you like, as what a number of ministers have said, how I want the world to be. We can get sort of sometimes frustrated at the pace. But even what Prime Minister Lee said, where we want a world where might is not, it's just not might that is right, and that greater powers have do because they can, and those who are smaller will just have to accept what they have to. These are aspirational statements, which I believe call out to our combined and collective desire to have peace and stability. I think that's what all we want. We recognize the difficulties, but here's my pitch. Let's not get frustrated at the process. Let's recognize that it will be difficult. These dispute claims have gone on for a long time, and if you remember, Deng Xiaoping said, leave it to the next generation. Perhaps some of us are not so wise, and we decided to solve it in this generation. But we ought to be patient about this, because the alternative is much worse. The fact that we can come together and say there is a dispute, there's this concern, I may not agree with you on your point of view, it's a good starting point. Because it's much better than saying, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm going to assert my rights, whatever you say, and I'm going to do what I want. And I think that is a sure course of collision.
One last question.
Ministers,